Have you ever worried about ending up like this as you get older? Or shrinking as you age? Losing height? I've got some things to share with you. Okay, so who doesn't want to end up like this as you get older, right? Pushing around a walker, maybe using a cane, God forbid a wheelchair, but this. Nobody wants that, ever. So how does that happen? I'm going to do my best to explain it. Now, while yes, there are some medical conditions, there are some reasons that people end up, there's things like ankylosing spondylitis and some very serious medical conditions, which are autoimmune issues, which is a whole nother topic and is mostly food driven, but I don't want to digress here. I'll hopefully do some of those in the future. But for just physical function, a lot of the times, the reason we end up like that is because we're not training our body in an optimal fashion to prevent that from happening. And it's never too late to improve it if you're already there. I remember having somebody I worked with, she was adorable. I could have just hugged her till her head popped off. But she was in her 90s and she was determined to improve her posture. And so there's, a great way to kind of test is if you stand up against a wall. This will fall over here. But if you stand up against a wall, let me see if I can do this without knocking it over, and you can get your shoulders and your head to be against the wall, right? And notice I'm not doing this for my head to be against the wall. I've actually got the back of my head against the wall. Now, what you'll notice if you've got a forward head is you'll have a space between your head and the wall, or you end up like this, trying to touch the wall with your head. That's a forward head posture. That can lead to that dowager's hump that nobody ever wants, right? So let's address the elephant in the room. It's, when we were little, our parents told us, or our mom told us, sit up straight, stand up straight, right? So that you didn't end up doing this when you were younger. Well, guess what we're doing now? And I don't have my phone down here with me, but we're doing this all day now, right? On the phones. So these young people are going to be in a lot of trouble as they age unless they understand they've got to do something to negate that, to reverse that, right? So the front of your body is designed to keep you upright without falling backward. So it's sort of eccentrically controlling your upright posture, right? Now, can you fall forward? Sure, you can fall forward, but most older people are stuck in a forward posture because if they stood up straight, if they're even physically capable of it at this point without having a compressed, dehydrated fascial system in the front, but if they stood up straight, they would fall backward because they've lost eccentric control in the anterior chain of the body or the front of the body. So can we regain that? Absolutely. There are so many different strategies that you can apply, or I should say movement training exercises that we can apply that you will find very beneficial for improving this, and you'll be taller. I mean, I was just at a conference this past weekend, and I work with consults there. I'm licensed in that state so that I can work directly with people and do manual techniques and things. And it was interesting because, I heard more than once, I feel taller when they went to leave the session because we improved their postural balance, their postural symmetry, so that they didn't have these great big curves that need to be smaller and placed a little differently. They're masses and spaces, which is if you lie on the floor, the parts that touch the floor are the masses, the parts that are off the floor are the spaces. And a lot of the times there's a huge imbalance in that, right? So if you lie on the floor, try it right now. I won't do it because of the camera angle, but if you lie on the floor, notice, with your palms up, notice what's touching the floor and what isn't. ideally your rib cage, and if I had Betty Bones down here, I could show you, your rib cage is meant to bear weight on the floor. If you look at a skeleton that's anatomically accurate, the ribs in the back come out a little bit beyond the shoulder blades. It's meant to bear weight, right? Your butt cheeks, your gluteus maximus, your power source, is meant to bear weight. If you've been sitting for decades and you don't have any glutes, you have what I lovingly call a pancake butt, you're going to feel a lot of weight on your tailbone or your sacrum because you don't have any glutes. Or you've got this big honking curve when you lay down on your back because these muscles are shortened here, the psoas. And so now you've got a lot of weight on the tailbone and it's very uncomfortable. So when you lay on your back on the floor, you're in a lot of discomfort. You know, the wrong part of your head, if you've got a forward head, when you lay on the floor, your head's like this, trying to touch the floor. Elderly people, very often when they've got a real forward head, or maybe not even elderly, need 2 pillows to lie on the floor. I've worked with people in their 90s and beyond on the floor, right, doing some fascial work, and their head can't touch the floor. I mean, they're like this, where's the floor? Where's the floor, right? That's a forward head. So we don't want that, right? So you're laying on the floor. If your head's like this, you feel your shoulder blades poking into the floor. You got this big honking arch in the mid back, and then you got your tailbone poking into the floor. And then the next thing you feel is your calves and your heels. Your thighs aren't even touching the floor. Guess what? You've got a lot of postural imbalance. Ideally, when you lay on the floor, everything is distributed evenly across the masses. So the center of the back of the head, the rib cage just below the shoulder blades is bearing a lot of weight. You've got a tiny little discrete curve in your low back, and it's lower than your belly button. And then you've got your butt cheeks protecting your sacrum or your tailbone. You've got your thighs weighted about midway down, your calves and your heels. So everything is evenly distributed, and there's no discomfort. Our bodies are designed to be comfortable on a concrete slab. So, yeah, if you're not comfortable laying on your back, there's imbalance going on in your body. It's not that you need a feather bed, right? It's not that you need cushions and 2 pillows. There's an imbalance going on. So, how do we start to negate that? How do we start to reverse that problem if it's there? Or how do we prevent it if it's not there, or maintain a nice, healthy posture, right? I mean, ideally, you want your ears to be right over your shoulders, and you want your shoulders to be back. You don't want to be like this, right? So, and I'm not pulling myself back. I'm just standing normal. Now, my posture might not be 100% perfect, but it's a lot closer to optimal than it is away from optimal, right? So just you know, you want your your ears to be lined up with your shoulders. You want those lined up with the hip bone and the ankles. You know, you don't want one of these, right? Or one of these. You know, some people kind of hang out on their hip flexors. You'll see them standing there. I saw that at the conference this weekend. I saw a few people standing like this. They kind of hang out on their hip flexors. They're just sort of hanging out there. Yeah. So what we want is we want the front and the back of the body to be very well balanced, everything to be a really good symmetry. So let me show you a couple of exercises that can help with that. Obviously, we want our power source. We want max to be working, so squats are really important, and I'll show you those in a minute because you want to do them to build max. You don't want to do them to work your quads and annoy your kneecaps, you know, because the quad's attached to the kneecaps, and if you're really working the quads and you don't really have a power source and you've got maybe a lack at the ankles and your calves aren't working right, then guess what? Your knees aren't going to be happy when you do squats, especially that way. So we want to do them where we're focusing on max, right? So I'll show you that in a minute. But for getting that upright head back posture, what you want to do is you want to load the front of the body, and there's many ways we can do that, and I don't know where your starting point is, so I'm going to give you a couple of general recommendations, okay? So the goal is you want to get your shoulders up and back and your head back. So you really want to lift your chest and pull your head back. Now, a lot of the times when people go to do that, they're using their elbows and they're doing like a chicken dance, right? They're trying to get those shoulders back. No, you want to get your shoulders back by using your shoulder muscles. See the difference here? I'm not using my elbows at all, right? I'm pulling my shoulders back and I'm feeling my shoulder blades, and I don't know if you can see this, but my shoulder blades are pulling in toward my spine, right? You've got your rhomboids, you've got your middle traps, you've got muscles that are designed to keep those scapula in a nice healthy position, to get the shoulder girdle in a nice healthy position. And this isn't about your rotator cuff. Your rotator cuff is only 4 little muscles. You've got 18 muscles that directly impact shoulder function, and the whole rest of the body indirectly impacts shoulder function. So let's stop beating up the rotator cuff, okay? Let's concentrate on getting the shoulder girdle back. So maybe we want to do some active work, right? So if we do that whole eccentric load and unload thing, and if you watched any of my other videos, you know what that means, but I'll quickly describe it. Eccentric load is when you lengthen a muscle under tension. So if I was to hold a weight here, if I'm holding a weight here and I go to lower this with control, that's my bicep muscle getting longer, controlling that motion. Okay, so that's what we want. We want that eccentric load. So how do we get the front of the body to load eccentrically so we can stand up nice and straight with everything where it belongs? I'm going to give you a couple of tips. So one of them would be to lift your chest and lean back slightly. That's going to load the front of the body. Now, if you want a wall behind you so that you feel safe, you can put one foot forward so that the foot that's back is a couple of inches from the wall, and I'm going to load more the front of this hip and my rectus abdominis, my whole, the whole anterior chain of the body. So what you do is if you put your hands here so that you've got that nice manual cue, you want to lift your chest and lean back enough where you're just tapping the wall with your, right across your shoulder girdles, right across the upper back. You don't want to hit your head on the wall. If you've got a forward head, you won't have to worry about that because it's out of the way anyway. And if you don't have a forward head, you will need to tilt your head forward a little bit. So pretend I got a wall behind me. I'll show you the side view. So I got that 1 foot back just a little bit, right? So that I'm loading a little bit more on one side, and you're going to lift your chest and try to tap your shoulders against the wall, keeping your head out of the way, because if you hit your head, your shoulders aren't tapping the wall. Hopefully that's clear, right? So the goal here is lift up, lean back, and tap. Lift up, lean back, and tap. And you want to tap that wall so gently it's like you're barely touching it, because that's really requiring a lot of eccentric control here. And then, of course, you want to switch sides. So now if I have my other leg back, I'm going to be working more that psoas area and the front of the body, right? So that's a beautiful way to kind of get started. Now, we can add some rotation. So that's going to up the game just a little bit. So if I've got my right foot back and my left foot forward, but you want to make sure your heel's a good couple inches away from the wall and your butt's not hitting the wall, right? But you want to be close enough where when you lift up and you go back, you can tap the wall, but very gently, very subtly. Now, if I add rotation, so if my right leg is back, I'm going to rotate left, because that's going to lengthen even more. If I rotate away from that hip that's already extended a little bit, it's going to give me even more eccentric load, okay? And rotation, or transverse plane, rotation really switches on your abdominals. I mean, like to the max. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to lift up, and now I'm going to, as I lean back, I turn just a little bit so that I'm tapping the top left shoulder blade against the wall. My right foot's back and I want to tap my left shoulder. So I lift up, and as I lean back, I turn and I just barely touch that wall, right? It's just barely. So I'll show you from the side. Right foot's back, I lift up. As I lean back, I turn, and I just tap that left shoulder. And of course, the opposite is true. If my left foot is back, I'm going to rotate to the right as I lift up and I lean back. So this is a beautiful way to start loading the anterior chain of the body, to start getting some good eccentric control here, right? Now, there are lots of other ways to do this, to get this going. If you're not feeling anything loading after a few repetitions, you're probably not doing it correctly. Because even if you've got a 6-pack or an 8-pack, you're going to feel the loading when you do this, because you're really focusing on that area. We're not isolating a muscle. We're working the body as a whole unit from the ground up. However, we're really focusing on anterior chain, getting it to eccentrically load. Now, as far as getting the head back, again, that's the, bring the shoulders back. And as soon as you bring those shoulders back, guess what? Your chin comes with it. So it's not about this, and it's not about this. It's about straight back. Straight back. But shoulders have to come with it. It's all, your shoulder girdle and your cervical spine, or your neck and your shoulders, are very much related with each other, right? So hopefully this has helped you. If you enjoy this information, I want you to, I'm sorry, I almost forgot squats. But hit subscribe if you don't subscribe, and hit the like button. But let me show you the squats. So I've done this in other videos, so if you've already seen this, you can turn this off now. But if you haven't, this is, or you want a review, this is a great review. You want to keep your knees against the chair. Your feet can be side by side, toes pointed forward. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can position your feet. They don't have to be perfect like this, but this would be optimal if you're new to this. And the goal is to get your bottom as close to the chair as you can without your knees coming forward. Now, you can see I'm kind of folding forward to counterbalance my weight, but I can get that butt right down into the chair and then push through my heels to come back up. Notice my knees are not coming forward, right? I'm not doing this. You want those knees to stay against the chair so that your bottom goes back and down, and you're loading max or gluteus maximus. You're loading your hamstrings, which control you getting down and up. Now, I've actually seen some people who think, well, if I do this, then I'm doing it right. But if you notice, now I'm just doing a toe touch, right? And I'm not getting my butt to the chair. This is what we want, right? If you feel like you're going to lose your balance, if you feel like you don't have enough strength, hang on to the kitchen sink, and then you'll have more control, because your brain will say, oh, good, we're not going to fall. We can work the muscle. If your brain thinks you're at risk of falling, your brain's going to cheat. It's going to use the wrong pathways, the wrong muscles, and you're going to train in dysfunction. So make sure you feel safe and secure, confident, and competent when you do the repetitions. You never do repetitions when you're feeling, this is a little challenging for me. I'm kind of losing my balance. Guess what? Your brain's cheating, and it's not telling you it's cheating. It keeps that a secret, okay? So hold on. If you need to, you're going to feel like your toes come up. You're going to feel like your weight's on your heels. If you feel that, you're doing it correctly. Push through those feet to come back up. Don't pull on the kitchen sink. Use your legs. Push through your feet. Use the power source. That's the goal, right? You want a good, strong power source, and you want a nice eccentric load ability in the front of your body. And that's going to make a big difference in your posture. All right. Again, hit the like button, hit subscribe. Let me know how you like these, and feel free to request a topic if there's something you'd like to hear about. You can age without decline. All right. See you next time.